So I have a question for you. When is corruption going to end in Nigeria? When is it going to end in sub-Saharan African countries in general? Something that we often wonder about, we often ask ourselves about. But the real issue is, how is it going to end? So what I mean, that's where the question leads to, right? So if it's going to end, how is it going to end? I don't think that it can end so easily. I think that who's going to hold the those in corrupt government offices, who's going to hold them accountable? They have to hold themselves accountable. They have to hold themselves accountable, and that is not an easy task because what is going to make them want to do that? I think it seems as if it's the kind of situation where if one person basically declares, oh, we shouldn't be doing this is stealing, or this is too much, or this is too that, there'll be 10 other people that just say, be quiet, we have to do, what are you talking about? And if another person says over there, oh, this is too much, it just gives up and throws their arm in the air and says, this is causing problems for the country, this is part of the corruption that we have. There'll be a few other people who just tell that person that, you know go away and leave us alone, leave us be. It's in a lot of ways really sort of an endemic problem that is a part of the culture a little bit of those offices. That's become that way. It's become more of a part of the culture, and I don't know that it's so easy to eradicate. Um so so I mean, requiring these government offices to hold each other accountable, it seems like a tall order. It seems as if somebody says one thing, others will refute it, and within that environment, the corruption will just continue, will just persist, and it'll just go on and on. And of course, the people they're supposed to be looking after, which is the population, the general population, will suffer and will continue to suffer. um I don't know that there's an easy solution. It might be, um we might just have to look to a time when there's a fear of the people, when there's a fear of being called on their stuff, of a tendency to be there, a lot of oversight, and there's not really that right now. And even if they set up oversights, it's usually being oversight is being done by those who can just choose not to do it, or who can succumb to the to the noise of somebody else saying, to the noise of others saying, leave me alone, or leave. And so they leave them alone, and they continue, and the corruption persists. um I don't know that there's an easy solution. The I mean, the time to look to a time where there's more fear of just the trouble is it's something far in the future for us, I think, only because the vast of the majority of those who would hold them accountable are not educated and engaged. And so how are they going to hold them accountable um, if they're not well read, or participating enough to even understand, to even ask the right questions and say, what are you doing here? What are you doing there? So maybe when the younger generation comes up, maybe their level of being educated about it, and knowing what questions to ask, and really kind of making the observations and standing up for them, maybe that will be increased. But as long as that's not the case, and you have a lot of poverty, which is to say, too many people are too hungry to care what the government office is, whether they're being responsible or not, then there's really nothing that can be done. It'll just keep going because um the mechanisms that are going to hold them accountable are not They're not in a solid place. You know, the middle class that's supposed to be there, that's supposed to be, you know, comfortable enough to say to not be worrying all the time, so they can look to they can look at what's going on with their government and ask questions. They are not, that's not there. And those are the things that incentivize, those are the things that incentivize accountability, is being asked questions and knowing you're going to be asked questions um by the masses all the time about certain things. I think that if the place is not at that stage yet, because so many people are too desperate to even care, to take notice or know what the right questions are to ask, then impunity you know, will reign, because there is no expectation that something will will force that to be a big problem and a big shame, and you will be forced to resign or all these things. You know, these are things that you never see in African countries, right? They never, you know, it's never like, oh, everything's so tough, I'm resigning. But no, they, you know, they just stay there and keep, you know, stealing, and they have their clique of fellow around them that just support, that's just like okay with it. So yeah, I think that there needs to be the fabric of society that's able to hold them accountable, because they're in a good enough position to do that. As long as that's not there, um there's still ways to go in really checking that and expecting you know, them to check amongst each other. That's a little too much to ask sometimes, because if one person wants to do this, other people would want to do that and say, well, that's no big deal. Other people want to do this. It's, yeah. Yeah. And then, and money is very, you know, it's lucrative. Who doesn't, who doesn't want to be wealthy? So it's easy. It's an easy decision for them to just do what they will. I mean, who's going to complain? Who's going to, so, it's a tough one. It just seems as if it'll be a while before corruption really is significantly reduced, just because, you know, the fabric of society that is going to cry and complain and legitimately do that, persistently do, because they're in a good place enough to really, you know, to be smart about it. That's not really, there's not enough of it, so it's just too easy for that, you know, for it to keep going. So yeah.